Elon, what is the source of your inspiration?
The source of my inspiration, I'd say, is somewhat philosophical. So I think that the thing we should be aiming for is increasing the scope and scale of human civilization, so as to best ask the right questions for the answer, which is reality, or the universe. And so if you accept that premise, then we should work to ensure the long-term survival and prosperity of humanity, of consciousness, and we should seek to extend that consciousness beyond Earth to other planets, eventually other star systems. That is the nature of my philosophy.
Elon, you are committed to take humans to Mars. What comes after Mars?
If we are able to establish a self-sustaining civilization on Mars, I think this will go a long way towards securing the long-term survival of humanity. And as I said, it would increase the scope and scale of consciousness, and would drive the development of new technologies that would ultimately enable us to go further, certainly further in the solar system, but ultimately to go to other star systems, and just go out there and find out what's going on. You know, are there other civilizations that existed perhaps hundreds of millions of years ago or a billion years ago that maybe lasted for a long time? Might have lasted for millions of years. I'm not sure we will ever get beyond our galaxy, but we can at least see what's happening in the great many stars that are in our galaxy. Maybe we'll meet some alien life that we can talk to. That would be interesting.
You mostly created new companies. What is your recipe for that?
I think it's quite difficult to create a new company and have it be successful. And generally, I do not recommend creating new companies unless you feel very compelled to do so. Starting a new company and making it successful, like a friend of mine has a good thing for that, which is it's like eating glass and staring into the abyss. That sounds like something you want to do, then start a company. So it's quite difficult. But I mean, the basics of starting a company are, you know, you have to have an idea that is compelling, or you think that could be a product that could be very valuable to the world. And then you've got to find a lot of talented people and convince them to do this new thing, because talented people are already doing something. So you have to convince them to do this new thing. And that can be it's very hard to do that. And then you have to build the company up. And a company goes through a life cycle, like like just like a human or like any animal. It starts off very simple, like one cell, then you get a few more cells, and then you get some organ differentiation, you start growing arms and legs, and they become like a baby, and then a toddler, a child and teenager, adult. The life cycle of a company is very much like that of a creature, and you have to reinvent the company at every stage. So this is why some companies get to be a large size and some do not. It's because you actually have to reconfigure the country at the various stages of its life cycle. The thing that's one of the things that makes cars especially difficult for manufacturing is that there are on the order of 10,000 unique parts or processes in vehicle production. And if even one of those has a problem, you cannot make the car. So the production moves as fast as the slowest, least lucky, least competent of, let's say, at least 10,000 unique parts and processes, some of which are within your control and some of which are at suppliers. So it's just very hard.
How can we produce enough energy to sustain growth?
Yeah, I think the long term, we'll get most of our energy from solar and wind, in addition to geothermal and hydropower. And I would say also people should really think positively of nuclear energy. I'm talking about just traditional nuclear energy that's well engineered. I think these days recently I've been surprised by a movement away from nuclear energy, but I think actually the reality is it is actually quite safe, and we should have more nuclear energy, especially if they are to be replaced with coal power plants. I think the evidence is very clear that there's much more of a health risk from coal power plants than there is from nuclear. Solar energy is often underestimated, but the Earth would be just a cold, dark ice ball at 3 degrees above absolute zero if it was not for the sun. And the sun also powers almost the entire ecosystem. From the sun powers the plants and the plankton, and then from there the whole ecosystem above plants and plankton. So you can think of really Earth as being already almost entirely solar powered, and but then there's like a little bit of extra power that's needed to power human civilization, which is small compared to the total solar incidence on Earth. The solar energy on Earth is approximately a gigawatt per square kilometer.
How can human beings interact with machine, Elon?
Overarching goal with Neuralink is to mitigate the AI control risk, so that as AI gets smarter and smarter, we need to do something to enhance the bandwidth between ourselves and machine extension of ourselves. Like, we are already a cyborg to some degree, in that our phones and our laptops and our computer applications are an extension of ourselves. But the bandwidth to the computers, especially to the phone, is very slow, where we essentially are outputting with thumbs, two slow-moving thumbs. Now, in the short term, over the next several years, Neuralink will attempt to solve a number of brain injuries and brain diseases. So our first application, for example, is to enable someone who is a quadriplegic or tetraplegic to be able to control their computer or their phone just by thinking. But I think you could communicate with your dog, I suppose. Although I think I know what my dog would want. He only wants like about 4 different things. It's like food, water, go outside, and be petted. But maybe there's more to it than that. Maybe he has a secret life of dogs that we just don't know that exists.
How do you learn? What is your way to process information to make the right question and find the answer?
I think you really want to try to learn at every opportunity, and it's great to read books and talk to interesting people and learn as much as possible. I suppose it was Plato or someone who said, or maybe attributed to Socrates, if I know anything, it's that I know nothing. And so essentially, just taking that attitude that really we wish to be less foolish over time. But I think it's actually, if you accept the premise that you're a fool, then, which we are all a fool to some degree, then I think that, and you wish to be less foolish, then I think that's a good approach. As soon as you start thinking you know too much, people can't teach you things, that's when you start getting very dumb. I always try to learn new things and being able to talk to interesting people, and you can often learn more by the questions that are asked than the answers that are given.
How do you find these skills in your candidates, people that want to work with you?
Generally, my interview generally consists of just asking people to tell me the story of their career, and in particular, to go into depth on some of the toughest problems that they've solved and how they solved them. And then that gives me pretty good insight into what they can do. And then I'll generally ask them, detailed questions about some problem that they solved technologically, and that will tell me if they were really responsible or not. Because whoever was actually responsible for solving the problem, they remember it very well. It's like seared into their brain. That's, I think, a good sort of filter for, okay, who really deserves credit for a problem and who does not, if they can answer the small detailed questions. Yeah, I also, I believe one should be optimistic about the future. I'm generally of the view, philosophically, that it's better to be optimistic and wrong occasionally than pessimistic and right. I think you want to look on the bright side of things, and I'm a little worried that young people today maybe sometimes are a little pessimistic about the future. The best way to predict the future is to create it. And so if you take the actions necessary for there to be a good future, then we will have a good future.